Welcome to Books Without Borders. Today we're going to be looking at Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. The story begins as we get acquainted with Rodion Romanovich Raskolnikov, a former student who lives in a tiny rundown flat in St. Petersburg. He's a very handsome young man, but fortune has not served him, and he lacks money. At the very start, Romanovich is already debating whether he should commit an unthinkable crime. As a desperate and destitute former student, Romanovich wanders through the slums of St. Petersburg and incinerates a random female through a simple act of violence, with no remorse or regret, as if he were Napoleon and acting for a greater purpose than what conventional moral law dictates. In the midst of a dangerous game of cat and mouse with a suspicious police investigator, Romanovich finds the noose of guilt tightening around his neck as he listens to the growing voice of his conscience. The only woman who offers some redemption is Sonia, a sex worker on the verge of despair. The main theme of this psychological drama is alienation from society. At first, Romanovich's pride separates him from society. He views himself as superior to all other people, because of which he cannot relate to anyone. Within his personal philosophy, he treats the people around him as tools that serve his purpose. The manner in which the novel addresses crime and punishment is not exactly what one would expect. The crime is committed in part 1, and the punishment comes hundreds of pages later, in the epilogue. The real focus of the novel is not on those two endpoints, but on what lies between them, an in-depth exploration of the psychology of a criminal. The inner world of Romanovich, with all of its doubts, deliria, second-guessing, fear and despair, is the heart of the story. Dostoevsky concerns himself not with the actual repercussions of the murder, but with the way the murder forces Romanovich to deal with the tormenting guilt, indeed by focusing so little on Romanovich's imprisonment. Dostoevsky seems to suggest that actual punishment is much less terrible than the stress and anxiety of trying to avoid punishment. Petrovich emphasizes the psychological angle of the novel, as he shrewdly realizes that Romanovich is the killer and makes several speeches in which he details the workings of Romanovich's mind after the killing. Because he understands that a guilt-ridden criminal must necessarily experience mental torture, he is certain that Romanovich will eventually confess or go mad. The expert mind games that he plays with Romanovich strengthen the sense that the novel's outcome is inevitable because of the nature of the human psyche. Of course, many of the benefactors of mankind who snatched power for themselves instead of inheriting it ought to have been punished at their first steps. But those men succeeded, and so they were right, and I didn't. And so I had no right to have taken that step. Overall, I enjoyed this book. Dostoevsky gives us a piece of work so well written, so well structured and deep, a real masterpiece. Romanovich commits a crime, and we get to see how this affects his life and his psychology. His inner balance and composure are disrupted, dissolved, and eventually destroyed. Throughout the novel, the reader is made aware of the fact that the protagonist is by nature a kind-hearted and compassionate man, who loves his family and friends and who cares for the destitute and the weak. He is also made out to be a learned intellectual, who has an acute sense of right and wrong. As a result, readers are constantly faced with the dilemma of sympathizing with him or condemning him for the cold-blooded crime. Although personally I would have preferred the long-winded dialogues to be cut a tad shorter, the emotional ending more than makes up for that slight flaw. Don't worry, no spoilers here. In addition to the main theme, there are several other individual, equally complex and equally well-developed stories relating to other characters and somehow relating to the main protagonist. It is deeply psychological, dark and extremely vivid when presenting the life and the society of Russia. All the characters are interesting. You get to care about them. You sympathize with them. You are hurt when they are hurt. Dostoevsky gives truly human character in the heroes of his book. They seem tortured from life itself, beautiful, problematic, and real. Despite the difference in mentality and culture, it was as if you could reach out and touch them. To witness Romanovich's slow descent into madness for me was the most thrilling aspect in this book. His inner battle between justifying his crime as murder for common well-being and suffering the mental agony resulting from it is an incredible display of human thinking and behaviour. But although I loved the inner struggle and Romanovich's development, there were parts in this book that were just a bit boring and too slow in my opinion. Mainly those parts contain the stories of some side characters I just couldn't really care about. It's occasionally just a little bit too wordy. Points that had been, or could have been, well explained in one page often dragged on for several pages. But this is a very minor criticism because the writing was so interesting and compelling that it was nearly always a pleasure to be reading it. The book's not easy, the language is a struggle, and the Russian names can get a little confusing, but it's well worth the effort if you make it through though. I still recommend reading since the really great sections of this, and there's a lot, definitely outweigh the slower parts. I feel like the other great lesson of this story is the fact that all our actions nearly always affect other people besides our own selves. One of the things that disturbs me about so many movies these days is how actions are often so depicted as isolated events, lacking consequences beyond the immediate progression of the storyline. When a person is killed, often to solve an immediate dilemma, we are almost never shown the suffering of that person's family or loved ones. Likewise, we are seldom shown the suffering of the family and loved ones of characters who commit serious crimes. And apparently the audience is expected to never ponder such things. But in this novel, the suffering of Romanovich's family and loved ones is a major theme. I also found a similarity between Crime and Punishment and Gone with the Wind in its description of a strong woman. Both Sofia Semyonova Marmeladov and Melanie Wilkes have been described as frail women. However, through their frailty is hidden an infinitesimal strength. Nothing to do with the review, but I really love how things keep connecting across borders. Such brilliant writings. This was a horrifying, emotional, and breathtaking reading experience. Let him suffer. Suffering and pain are always mandatory for broad minds and deep hearts. Truly great people, it seems to me, should feel great sadness on this earth. Dostoevsky's irresistible and incomparable storytelling brings forth such a gloomy and wretched world. Rodya is in a downward spiral as he struggles between his conscience and a haughty disdain for humanity, but at last, it's only the love and care for another that ultimately leads him towards his redemption, to suffer sincerely to regain compassion and peace. But all at once, in that same moment, she understood everything. Infinite happiness lit up in her eyes. She understood, and for her there was no longer any doubt that he loved her infinitely, and that at last the moment had come. My final verdict. Do I think Dostoevsky is a brilliant author? Did I enjoy reading this novel? Yes, definitely. If you've liked this review, please check out our channel, where you can find other reviews across a number of different titles. Thank you for watching.